Sommerfeld. Welcome to the President's Show. Today we have a special guest coming. President John Quincy Adams is pulling in right now. He was the 6th President of the United States, and he served his term from 1825 to 1829. And here he comes. Welcome, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Great, thanks. So, Mr. President, when and where were you born?
I was born in Braintree, Massachusetts in 1767, and when I was 8 years old, I watched the Battle of Bunker Hill from my family's farm with my mother.
Wow, that's interesting. And where did you go to school?
I graduated from Harvard College in 1787. I also then later attended law school, also at Harvard.
I heard you had a weird habit in the morning. Could you tell me a little more about that?
Yes, every morning I like to collect my thoughts while bathing in the Pontiac River, which was close by.
Okay, my next question is that you were the first president whose father was also a president. Was your father alive during your term?
He was alive for only 1 year, my first year as a president. He died in 1826, and I was elected in 1825. He was involved in my politics leading up to my presidency all of my life.
Wow, did you and the First Lady have any children?
Yes, and actually, there is my wife, Louisa, right now.
Oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting to see you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
So maybe you can answer this question then. Did you have any children?
Yes, we had 4 children. George Washington Adams, who's lived to be 28 years old, John Adams, who lived to be 31, Louisa Catherine Adams, who only lived to be 1, and Charles Francis Adams, who lived to be 79.
That's wonderful. Did you have any siblings growing up?
Yes, I did. I had 8 other brothers and sisters, actually.
You must have lived somewhere big if you had that many siblings.
Yes, I was born in London, England, the first and only First Lady not to be born in the U.S.
Wonderful. And what year were you two married?
We got married on July 26, 1797.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Now for some more questions for the President. What was your career like before you were President?
Before I was president, right after college actually, I became a lawyer, but I was not very successful immediately.
Really? What did you do after that?
Well, right about when I was getting to be more successful as a lawyer, George Washington appointed me to be the Minister of the Netherlands.
And what year was that in?
That was in 1794, and then I was a U.S. Minister to Prussia after that.
How long were you working as the Minister to Prussia?
Until my father lost his election for his second term in 1800.
And then did you have another job after that?
Yes, then I won the state senate, and 2 years later I was appointed to the U.S. Senate. Then, after that, I was the first U.S. Minister to Russia.
Wow, and were you President after that?
Not quite yet. Next, I was the head of a delegation of 5 people. We tried to negotiate a peace agreement ending the War of 1812 with Britain in 1814.
And did you ever reach that agreement?
Yes. A treaty was signed on December 24th, 1814.
Wow, but if I'm not mistaken, the news about the treaty didn't reach America until February?
That is correct. And then, from 1817 to 1825, I was the Secretary of State. I was appointed by the 4th President of the United States, James Monroe.
What kind of accomplishments did you have during that time?
Some accomplishments that I had was I played a role in making the Monroe Doctrine. This warned the European nations not to interfere in the happenings of the Western Hemisphere. Also, I negotiated U.S. fishing rights off the Canadian coast and established the current U.S.-Canadian border. I also stopped Russians' claims to the Oregon Territory as well.
You were very successful then. And then after that, were you elected President?
Yes, I was finally elected in 1825.
How many terms do you serve as President of the United States?
I only served for 1 term as the 6th President of the United States, just like my father, from 1825 to 1829.
And what political party were you?
I was part of the Democratic Republican Party. This opposed federalism. As you could guess, this later split into the 2 separate parties, the Democratic and Republican parties of the modern era that we have today.
Some say that you had a rather odd election. Could you explain this?
Yes, my main competitor was Andrew Jackson. He actually won both the popular vote and received more electoral votes than me as well. The House of Representatives came to a conclusion and decided to elect me as the president. Henry Clay helped me along the way. He too originally was running for president, but did not receive enough electoral votes to move forward to have the option to be elected by the House of the Representatives. He then took my side after this, and I appointed him to Secretary of State. This election was referred to by many as the corrupt bargain.
Who was your vice president?
My vice president was John C. Calhoun. He was involved in the War of 1812 before he became my vice president. He also was the vice president of the seventh president of the United States, Andrew Jackson. He actually is here right now to tell you a little bit about himself.
Oh wow, another unexpected guest. What a surprise this has been.
Like the president said, I was an important figure in the War of 1812. I was a co-leader of the War Hawks, along with Henry Clay, a group that asked Congress to declare war on Great Britain. I was also appointed to Secretary of War from 1817 to 1825. I did not agree with the president on many political issues. Throughout his 4 years, we disagreed on more and more.
Thank you. Now, Mr. President, what were your major domestic accomplishments during your presidency?
I pushed to establish many things like national banks and a national university. I also made improvements with the road and canal building throughout the country. I made the first dig for the Ohio and Chesapeake canals. However, I had tough opposition from the people in Congress who were in favor of Andrew Jackson.
Wow, those are very important and still used today. Did you have any foreign policy accomplishments?
Yes, towards the end of my presidency in 1828, my last year actually, I signed the Tariff of Abominations. This helped protect American manufacturers, but also caused a price incline on many goods. This was especially true for the southern goods.
When you took office, is it true that the United States was in debt?
Yes, we were actually in debt of $16 million. I helped change that, and by the end of my 4 years, I had reduced it to only $5 million. Andrew Jackson, my immediate presidential successor, completely freed the country from its debt and got rid of the $5 million.
What happened to you during your campaign of 1828?
I ran for a second term, but I was beat out by Andrew Jackson this time. During my campaign, my opponents charged me with corruption and public plunder. This, as you might think, turned away many of my voters.
What was your life like after you were president?
I served 9 terms in Congress after my presidency from 1830 until my death in 1848.
What kind of things did you support during that time?
I opposed slavery and attempted to read into the record of all the anti-slavery petitions. Also, after 8 years of me trying to get rid of the gag rule, they repealed it.
What was the gag rule?
A rule that limited the conversation of a topic by members of decision-making or the legislative body.
I heard you received a nickname because of your anti-slavery views. What was that again?
They called me Old Man Eloquent.
And you died in 1848. How did that happen?
I had a stroke after I casted a vote in opposition to a motion concerning certain Army officers serving in the Mexican War on February 24th, 1848.
How old were you when you died?
I was 8 years old.
And where were you buried?
I was buried in the First Unitarian Church in Quincy, Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now Anna is here to grade the presidency of John Quincy Adams.
Thank you, Kaylee. President Quincy Adams was very successful before and after his presidency, but not much during it. If he were running for president during our time, he may have been elected based on how successful he was before he was president. However, I would have to give him a grade of a C. But if I were to grade him before his presidency, I'd give him an A, and after, I'd probably give him a B+.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for watching The President Show, and we'll see you next week as we interview our 7th president.